Welcome to Coffees and Content, the podcast keeping you ahead in all things social media and digital marketing. I'm Lauren, digital marketing strategist, international speaker, and the owner of The Social Collective, a multi-six-figure marketing agency. Each week, I'm breaking down all of the latest marketing trends, strategies, and of course, those must-know updates. I'm going to be having conversations with some of the industry's top experts, sharing insights you simply won't hear anywhere else. So grab your cup of coffee and let's get into it. This is Coffees and Content. Hello and welcome back to the Coffees and Content podcast. I am your host, Lauren, back with another solo episode today. And I am very excited because today's topic is one of my favorite things to talk about, and I'm sure that you're going to take away, hopefully, a lot from the episode. I also really hope that you enjoyed Rosie's interview with me last week, and next week we have another incredible guest coming on the podcast that I can't wait to share more with you about very soon. Before I get into today's episode, though, I wanted to, give you a few little updates on what has happened since our last episode, because there's been a lot of changes in the Coffees and Content space, and I think that you are all going to really like them. I wanted to share with you, first and foremost, we have a brand new, first official Coffees and Content website. I am so excited to finally have this live. It's been something that's been on my mind and in the works for the longest time, but I wanted to have a hub, where you could go and listen to the episodes that have previously been published. It's a great place to find resources. And it also has some links to some very exciting new places and spaces. One of which of those is our new Substack that is launching. For anyone who has been around since, the conception of the Coffees and Content podcast, you will know that the podcast actually began as a spin-off or a further evolution of a newsletter that I started once upon a time called Coffees and Content. Duh, of course. Coffees and Content was the original newsletter for my digital marketing agency, The Social Collective. And of course, I think just over time it evolved and grew into this podcast because I had so many fantastic conversations with people where we're discussing lots of different topics. And I had a lot of people say to me, Lauren, why is this not an audible format? I would love to listen. I would love to tune in and be able to consume all of the latest social media updates, the trends, the tips, the hacks that you have while I'm on the go. And of course, we turned it into this podcast. And I love this podcast, but I also feel like there's so many more things that I have to share, and I don't necessarily have the time to get out multiple episodes a week yet. That will be coming. But I thought what I would do is bring back the OG Coffees and Content newsletter and turn it into the form of a Substack. For anyone who doesn't know what Substack is, it is a new thing on the scene when it comes to marketing tools that you can use. So for any of my bloggers who are listening, to anyone who likes writing newsletters, any writers that are listening to this is a really great platform for you. So I would encourage you to go check it out. The Coffees and Content Substack is going to be a space where I can share with you deep dives into what happens in each of these episodes, additional things that I've got to share when it comes to social media and digital marketing tips and tricks. And I'm going to be reinstating what we used to have, which was the original Coffees and Content newsletter. So what it started off as was a newsletter where every single week I provided you with updates on all of the latest social media and digital marketing trends and updates and everything that's happened in the space. And so I can keep this podcast a space where, of course, we can still dive in every so often into all of the latest updates and tips and tricks and that kind of thing. I also really want to make sure that you guys are getting some really great education from these episodes, so it doesn't just have to be a space for updates. So therefore, I thought to fill the gap, I would add the Substack into the mix. So if you want to have a look at our Substack and you want to subscribe so you get all of the newsletters pinging into your inbox every single week when new episodes go live, when new articles go live, all of those amazing things, head over to coffeesandcontentpod.com, and there you can find the link to the Substack. And the only other thing I wanted to share with you before I get into the juice of today's episode is that we also now have a Facebook community. And I'm really, really excited for this one. I want our Covers and Content community on Facebook to be a space where you guys get to interact with one another. So everyone that is listening or watching, you guys get to connect with each other. So we're no longer just all individually listening. We get to tune in together. I'm going to be jumping in every so often with live updates and sharing a bit more about the behind the scenes of what actually happens in this podcast space. And of course, there'll be some more exciting things happening over there. So that's another one that you can go find on our website, copiesandcontentpod.com. Click on the Facebook community button and it will take you over there. But that is all for the updates. I promise I will get into the episode now. But I wanted to make sure that if you want to continue to consume and be part of the Copies and Content community outside of listening to these episodes every week, that I wanted to let you know that you can do that now. And I'm really, really excited. So jump on over to both the Substack and the Facebook community, and I'll see you there. Righto. Into today's episode, what we're going to be covering today is what I like to call the visibility formula. You're probably wondering, Lauren, what do we mean when it comes to visibility? I have a conversation really, really frequently with a lot of business owners, whether they're clients of mine, they are people that listen to the podcast. There's so many people that I have these conversations with who are asking, Lauren, what are the tips and tricks that I can be using to get seen more on social media or to get my content out there? Or they're thinking, Lauren, is my content even reaching the right people? I just don't know. So what I thought I would do today is break down the strategies that I use within the Social Collective to really grow and scale this business. Because as you've seen, this business started out once upon a time in the corner of my bedroom, and it is now in its own office. We have a team, we are growing, expanding, we have international clients, all of the things. So I wanted to show you a little bit of the behind the scenes, I guess, around how our content consistently lands in front of the right people. And when I say consistently, I mean consistently. I also mean strategically. And I guess in addition to that as well, it's about positioning yourself as a figure of authority in your industry. So I thought I would get into that today and share a little bit about what it means to actually get your content in front of the right people. Before I get into anything though, I do have to give, I guess, a little disclaimer. And this is, I say it with the utmost love. This is coming from a place of wanting to be as authentic and honest and truthful with you as possible. I want to share the hard truth and the harsh reality about visibility. I see so many business owners, when you are creating your marketing content, putting in so much time and effort and energy into your content to make sure it is absolutely perfect visually. What I see is one of the biggest missing components is actually asking yourself, is this going to get in front of the right people? You could have the prettiest post in the entire world, but if you haven't nailed something as simple and as so important as your messaging, you are simply not giving that piece of content the opportunity to get in front of the right eyeballs. Gone are the days in social media where we need the biggest audience. And it's one of my favorite myths to debunk, really, is that you don't have to have a huge audience to be selling out your products, to be booking out your services. What you need, though, is a community, and you need an audience that are really engaged. We need them to be interested in what we are offering. We need them to be interested in the journey that we can take them on. We need to target them and we need to get them invested so that they want to actually invest their time, their effort, their money into working with us. And the place, I guess, that I see a lot of the business owners not necessarily failing, but it's definitely there where they have shortcomings, is in this, what I call the messy middle. In this messy middle section, this is where you feel like, okay, I'm no longer this teeny tiny little business anymore. I've been operating for a few years, or I've been posting on social media for a while. My business has been in the scene for a hot minute, but I'm also not big enough to instantly be recognized by people. I don't have these millions of followers. And I think there's a lot of, I guess, mindset work that happens in this messy middle section where we really have to get ourselves out of the headspace of thinking, oh, but I'm not small anymore, but I'm also not huge. And so I don't really know where I fall. And this is where I see business owners starting to panic, or marketing managers starting to panic, social media managers, copywriters, content creators. That's where we start to have this panic moment of, okay, who do I need to be talking to get more items on my content? How do I get my content to go quote unquote viral? How do I get this to get out there? And I think, again, a lot of people think that the answer to this question is that we need to be posting more. We need to be sharing more. We need to show up every single day. But it's actually not about the number of times you post. It's not even about the number of people that see it. It is about how strategic you are with your content. This, hands down, is one of my favorite things to work on with my clients through the Social Collective, is because every single business owner and every single person that listens to this podcast or that runs a business or that is out there marketing something in the digital marketing space, every single one of us has a different capacity. We have different time available. We have different resources available. We have different amounts of money that we can use to outsource or to pay ourselves to do the work. So it's not necessarily about how many times in a day can I post or how many times can I put out a piece of content in the digital space. It's actually about looking at what you have available within your capacity, getting really strategic with your messaging, and then scaling from there. Does that make sense? Am I resonating so far? If I am, and you're watching this on YouTube, drop me a yes in the comments. And if you're listening to this in your ears as an audio podcast, head over to the Copies and Content Podcast Instagram and let me know. But what I would like to do is, I really think that it's about time that we dive into a formula. Yeah. I want to share with you my 3-part visibility formula, which consists of 3 components. Number 1 is engagement. Number 2 is that consistency that we talked about. And number 3 is that authority piece. Right. So this is how the formula works. And I'll be honest, before I even get into any of this, there is no shortcut to growth. There is no secret hack. There is no secret sauce that you can spread all over your content that's instantly going to make it viral. What's actually going to happen is that in order to grow and to scale our businesses, to get you seen, to get you trusted, and to get you converting faster, we have to implement these steps. Step number 1, engagement. I'm going to be honest, if you are posting and ghosting and thinking that all of a sudden your content is going to get seen, you are so incredibly mistaken. Engagement is one of the most underrated ways to use social media. And I'm talking things like outbound engagement, so engaging with people that might be a potential audience of yours, responding to comments. You have no idea how many pages I go on Instagram alone every single day, and I see a series of comments that have just all been completely ignored, or they've got a heart and you've liked the post, but you haven't bothered to show that person that you're actually that invested and you haven't responded to their comment. And the other way is your DMs. Again, DMs are such an underrated resource on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, because this is where our audience is actively reaching out to us and wanting to have a conversation. And if you're listening to this podcast thinking, I'm above responding to my DMs, I'm above responding to the people that engage with me, well, I want you to ask yourself then, what do I expect in return? If I'm not willing to invest my time engaging back with people that engage with me, can I actually expect somebody else to spend their time engaging on my content if I'm not willing to do it in return? That's a big question to ask ourselves. So the mistake that I see a lot of people making is doing this posting and ghosting. It's putting content out there and going, oh yes, the masses, they will just flock to my content. But you're then disappearing. There's nobody to have a conversation with. There's no one to ask questions to. There's nobody to actually feel like there's a human being on the other side of their content. And remembering when it comes to algorithms, because I know a lot of you love to hear about the algorithm talk, is that the algorithm favors conversations, not just your content. The algorithm wants to see that you are actively using, think about Instagram, for example. Adam Mosseri and his team behind Instagram, they want to know that you are utilizing the platform for what it has been designed for. They don't want you just going on there and looking at it like it's going to be a money-making machine. Like you post and then cha-ching, 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 in comes all the money. They want you to be on their platform for their selfish gain, because for them, that's how they make money. And you'll see that even Adam Mosseri, who is the head of Instagram, he's not going, oh, I'm above all of this. I'm not going to engage with anybody. I'm not going to post on my stories or my reels or share anything on my feed. No, he's getting in there with us. He's sharing content. He's responding and having conversations with his community because he knows that that's what's going to get people to stick around on his platform. So what do? We follow suit. We do the same thing as what he's doing. We engage, we connect, we inspire other people. And that simple, teeny tiny part one of my 3-step formula instantly skyrocketed my content. The reason being is that I'm no longer posting and ghosting. There are periods of time, I'll be honest, there are periods of time where I do a little bit of a post and a ghost because I'm really busy or I'm on the run or a lot of work has come in that particular week. But every opportunity I have, even if it's not consistent, every opportunity I have to share all my stories, to reply to comments, to engage with my DMs, to really connect with my audience, I do. And I highly, highly encourage that you do the same. Part 2 of this 3-step formula is this whole concept of consistency. Now, when I talk about consistency, yes, there is a certain component of this where it kind of comes down to, are you consistently posting on social media? But I think more than anything, going back to what we talked about at the very start of this episode, consistency means so much more than just the number of times you post. Consistency comes down to your branding. Consistency comes down to where you're posting, how you're showing up, where you're showing up, when you're showing up, and of course, how you are speaking to your community and who you're speaking to. Imagine if I talked to a different client persona with every single podcast episode. If I spoke to farmers one week and I spoke to teachers another week and I spoke to business owners and mortgage brokers and all of the things, if I spoke to a whole different variety of people, you would feel like, Lauren, I am so incredibly confused. Who are you speaking to and what is the message that you are trying to communicate? But instead, I get on this platform every single week without fail, and I communicate to the business owners that are ready to take that next step in their marketing. They are ready to start implementing strategic strategies that is going to see their business grow, and that is you included. And because of that, it is so much easier for my podcast to be recommended, for my content to be shared, for people to understand why I am the person to go to. And we're going to get to authority in a moment. But it's all about being consistent with not just when and where you're showing up, but how you're showing up. You see, a lot of the content that I post for the Social Collective in particular, I am usually wearing the color brown. That is our core brand colors. Even with this podcast, I record it in the TSC studio. You can see the wall behind me is brown. We've got some signage. I constantly make sure that there is a little component of TSC in everything that I do, because that is one of the ways that we show up consistently. The other reason, I guess, when it comes to the frequency of posting is because if you don't show up, and I'm just going to be totally honest and really frank with you all, if you don't show up and you come to me and you say, Lauren, I'm wondering, where is my audience? Why haven't I seen growth? Why haven't I seen new followers come in? Why haven't I seen people liking my content? And I say, okay, well, when was the last time you posted on social media? And you say to me, it was probably a couple of weeks ago. And I say, okay, and what about the time before that? It was probably about a month ago. I'm going to say to you, well, how are people supposed to remember you if you only show up once in a blue moon, once every couple of weeks, or once a month, or just a few times in a month when I can, and then I go away because life gets busy? There is a certain amount of accountability that we as business owners have to take when it comes to posting on social media. We can't just post every once in a while and expect that for our audience, we are going to be top of mind. What I want for every single person that ever listens to this podcast is to know that if your audience is thinking of a go-to person in your particular industry, my want for you is that you are the first person that they think of. When people think about social media and digital marketing, I want myself and I want the social collective to be the first that they think of. When it comes to your products and your services, what is the thing that you're known for? And like I said, we're going to get to authority in a second, but what is the thing that you're known for? Because we want you to be the first person that comes to mind when they're thinking about that particular thing. And the only way that we can do that is if we are constantly showing up and reminding them. Don't expect people to remember you after just a couple of posts. It's that consistency of the messaging and consistency of the showing up that's really going to help you take that to that next level. It also builds that recognition as well. I go to, and for any of you who go to things like networking events or anything like that, I frequently go to different events where, because I'm putting myself out there in the public space and I'm posting content on social media with my face and getting my brand associated in the social media and that digital marketing space, there is nothing more exciting for me than turning up to a networking event and someone says, I saw your content on social media, or oh, my ad popped up. Oh, your ad popped up on my page. That to me is the coolest thing because it shows, especially when I'm in a room full of my ideal clients, that shows me that my content has made its way to them. But even more so than that, it builds that connection that they have with me. They feel like they know me before they've even met me. And that's what I put when you're listening to this podcast, is that you feel like you know me, even if we've never met. And that recognition component is huge because it automatically takes you from having a cold lead to a warm lead. It stops it from feeling like it's a hard sell. And instead, we're focusing on connection and can I actually help you? Can my product or service actually help you with this need that you have? And the third part of my 3-step formula is, of course, as I've been teasing out, that concept of authority. It's establishing the trust, establishing the credibility, and establishing the influence in your space. When I think about social media in a nutshell, if I was to sum up everything, what we want to be doing with social media is positioning ourselves as the leaders in our industry. We want to show people that we are the go-to people, whether it's a product or a service, whatever that looks like for your business. We want you to be positioned as the leader in your industry because that is when people don't even hesitate. If they need a product for a certain thing or they need a service to fulfill a certain need of theirs, when they think of you, it's not even a hard sell. It's just, oh, I know exactly who to go to. Lauren's the person, or Karen is the person, or Sarah is the go-to. You know, we want them to be thinking, oh, that is the person. Because again, that ekes out into our everyday life as well. It ekes out into the way people talk about us. They refer us. They share this information with the other people in their circles. And that is what we're seeking. Because people don't just buy from anyone. You know, there's that saying that people do business with people. People do business with people they trust. If you have the know, the like, and the trust factor associated with your brand, I'm going to say that again, know, like, and trust. They are 3 of the most important things that you could have in your business because if people know you, they like you, and they trust you, you'll never need to do a hard sell to them. All you need to do is extend the invitation for them to come into your space. And honestly, my friends, you watch them follow. A few ways that we can do this as well when it comes to establishing authority, because I'm sure you're thinking, okay, Lauren, I know how to connect. I know how to engage. I know how to be consistent with my content, but how do I show my authority? How do I show that I am a leader in my industry? And there's a few things you can share. For a service-based business, you could share something like results. Even for product-based businesses, you could share how your product has been implemented into someone's life and changed their life for the better or change something that they do. I think about different skincare companies or different supplement companies and how, especially the first thing that comes to my mind is like an acne ad. You think about a skincare brand that talks about how they help you with acne. The first thing they show you is a before and an after, but before using this product and they're full of acne all over their face, and then post using this product and they show you how clear it is, how beautiful and glowy and dewy their skin is. And of course, people look at that and they go, well, yeah, I kind of look like that girl in the first picture, and I most certainly want to look like the one in the second picture. And so they buy into the product. The other thing you can share, of course, is testimonials. Getting your audience, whether it's products or services, getting your audience to speak on your behalf, getting them to talk about what, again, this makes it not so much of a hard sell. You get them to talk about what it is that your product or service has done for them that's revolutionized a certain area of their life or their business. And the other thing I think that's really underrated, and partially one of the reasons why I'm bringing a Substack into the mix of this podcast, is because thought leadership content is another really fantastic one. And this works again for product and service-based businesses. And the reason I say thought leadership content is because we want to remind people that we have created a business for a reason. Whether you've bought the business that you have or you've created it yourself, there is inevitably a reason. What is your why? Where did the concept come from? Where did the idea stem from? And what are your thoughts about that particular industry? Why are you doing what you do? Why do you know it's helpful? This podcast in particular, talking about the visibility formula and how I use tactics and strategy to grow online, again, is a thought leadership piece of content because it is showing you the way that my brain ticks. And if you like the way my brain ticks, you're more likely to subscribe to my podcast. I think there's a big difference too in being visible and being respected in your industry. There's a lot of people who will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and there's a lot of people who will share value. And I think there is a big difference between sharing fluff on social media versus sharing something your audience are really going to appreciate. So every piece of content that I create, I will always, whether it's for myself or we create it for our clients, we will always go back through that piece of content and ask ourselves, if it's me or it's my team, we will always ask ourselves, does my audience understand what they are supposed to do once they've read this piece of content? And two, what are they taking away? I want every single piece of my content to give even just the tiniest little takeaway. I want every piece of content to have some value that we're putting out into the universe. We're not just talking for the sake of talking or leaving a whole bunch of little breadcrumbs. I want every piece of content to be making sure that it has such good value that there's something in it that every single person can take away. So with that being said, I wanted to share a couple of little, tidbits on how I built the Social Collective when it comes to marketing and how I am continuing to build it, because this business is almost 4 years old now. And there's a lot of changes and a lot of shifts that I've been making, but there's also some very conscious decisions that I have made when it comes to the marketing of TSC. And the very first thing, and I talked about it at the very beginning of this episode, the first thing that I did is I threw out the concept of trying to market to every single person. And instead I honed in and got so gosh darn specific on who I am wanting to talk to and resonate with. I'll talk about this more in another episode, but there is this concept of scarcity and feeling like actually genuinely scared of what if I just hone in my content on the person that is my absolute dream client? Does that then mean I'm pushing other people away? And in my opinion, absolutely not. Because nobody is going to be your 1% ideal dream client at every single moment of their journey and at every single point in their life. So what's going to happen is that we are speaking and almost manifesting in a way our absolute dream client. And what we're doing is focusing all our comms on that person. So I speak to the person that I would be so excited if they turned around and booked in a discovery call at the Social Collective. Every single client that walks through our doors, I want them to be someone who lights us up. My team and I all included. I want it to be someone a business owner who is ready and invested and excited. And those are the people that we get fired up to work with. And so because of that, every single piece of our content speaks to that person, but it doesn't mean that other people can't resonate. You might resonate 2/3 of it. You might resonate with a couple of points that I speak to. And that in itself still pulls in that wider group of people that become your dream clients. The other thing that I've done is really, really focus on making sure that thought leadership content is there. There are so many other, and I'll be the first to say, there are so many other marketing agencies out there, but the vast majority of the clients that come to TSC come because they've tuned into a podcast or they heard me speak somewhere or they have read a blog piece that we've posted on our website or they've read a newsletter and they have really resonated with the way that we think and our approach to marketing, especially when it comes to being a holistic digital marketing agency where anyone that works with us, whether it's for coaching or it's outsourced and you're outsourcing your work to my team and I, everything we do is holistic. So we focus on socials, we focus on ads, we focus on email marketing, and also some PR as well. And with that, we make sure that every client gets that holistic approach. So because of that, I have to make sure that the content that we share talks about why it's so important to be holistic. And I make sure that that in itself is communicated. So when people are looking for holistic digital marketing support, we are top of mind. And the last one, the big shift above all that I have really focused on is turning that visibility into conversations. I am always opening my door for more DMs to come in. I'm always wrapping up this podcast, letting you know that if you have a question, you can send me a message on Instagram. I have this thing, and I've talked about it in previous episodes, where if you have a question, whether you've watched a story I've shared on Instagram, you've read a post, you've seen something the agency has posted, you've listened to a podcast, if you have a question, what I encourage everybody to do is slide into my DMs and ask me the question. And I will do one of two things. A, if I can answer it in under a minute, I will send you back a voice note. And B, if I can't answer it in under a minute, I turn it into a podcast episode. And that in itself has allowed my audience to know that they will always get a response from me. It's not a robot. It's not somebody else on my team. It is me behind the scenes in my DMs, making sure that every single person that sends us a message gets a response. Because I know for building connections and starting those conversations in my community, that is so important. So next time you think about, I just don't really have the time, or I'm above speaking to my audience, just remind yourself, we need to be communicating in order to expect communication back. And I think that's huge. So to wrap up this episode, what I thought that I would do is give you a little bit of homework. And for those of you who want to share about how you're finding this, how you're going, if you want to share any feedback, like I said, head over to coffeesandcontentpod.com and join the Facebook community. It's our Coffees and Content community. You can probably also search it up just directly in Facebook, but if you can't find it, you can go to the website. And these are some easy takeaways that I would like you to take away from today's episode. And like I said, report back to me in the Facebook community or DM me on Instagram. Let me know how you found it. But the first is I want you to think about how across this week you can intentionally engage with your audience. So whether that is responding to some of your DMs, whether that is going out and commenting on some other people's posts, not just with the yes, queen, or OMG, love this. I want you to put a thoughtful comment on their page. And of course, making sure that every single one of the comments that has come across your page has a really thoughtful response to it. The next thing that I am going to challenge you all to do is post 2 to 3 times a week. And it sounds like a lot, but I can guarantee you, if you can find some time in your day where you sit down once a month and you, whether it's creating all of the content or you come up with the ideas and you do the visuals later, posting 2 to 3 times a week is actually really doable. But I will preface this by saying the same thing as what I say to my clients. There is phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 when it comes to posting on social media. I always encourage my clients to think about their ideal posting schedule, and that becomes phase 2. Then what you're going to do once you've done phase 2 and you've set that up and you've journaled it down on a piece of paper or you've plugged it into your calendar is I want you to take one step back. And I want you to think about what is actually phase 1. In order for me to get comfortably to phase 2 and be able to post consistently, what do I have to do in phase 1 to set myself up for that success? So that might look like taking your schedule of 2 or 3 posts a week and cutting it down to 1, and taking this concept of doing a newsletter every fortnight and pulling it back to just once a month. So looking at what is realistic for you, and that becomes phase 1. Then we build up to phase 2. And once we've nailed phase 2, we then scale up and we go into phase 3. The other things I'd like you to think about as well is showcasing your authority. So in that content schedule that you're going to create, I really want you to think about what are some ways that you can share with your audience why you are so good at what you do, why you are the go-to person in your industry. So whether that's sharing your results, sharing some testimonials, sharing some thought leadership pieces, and sharing your expertise, I really want you to put it out there to the world that this is who I am and this is what we do. And the very, very last thing that every single one of you needs to go away and do after this episode is I want you to track what works. So in phase 2, we can double down. Tracking everything makes the biggest difference, from tracking your boosted posts, tracking your ads, tracking your social media content. Whatever that looks like, I want you to be tracking your content and seeing the success so you can come back later and look at what's worked and what hasn't worked. A big tip that I give to a lot of my clients is going and tracking things for 3 months and then coming back at the end of that quarter and going, okay, what were my goals that I set at the start? Did I achieve my goals? And what worked and what didn't? And that's what you can then take into the next quarter and continue to grow and expand. So just remember, as we wrap up today's episode, you don't need to be the loudest voice in the room. You don't have to have the most polished, perfected, glamorous looking content. You just need to be the most valuable one, the one that is providing your audience with those insights, the one that's providing your audience with that value, that education, that support. I want you to start practicing showing up so you can get seen. And of course, that is what's going to take you to that next stage of your business. That, my friends, is the visibility formula. So I'd like to wrap up this episode by reminding you, of course, to hit subscribe. If you've listened to this audibly, please go check out our YouTube channel because you can actually see me face to face as we have conversations every single week. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can, of course, go and subscribe to the podcast too. Also, make sure that you're following Copies and Content Pod on Instagram and check out the website with all of those new exciting links. But let's go and make this season the most valuable one. I want you to go out there, show up for yourself, show up for your business, give yourself the best possible opportunity to be seen, heard, and talked about by every single one of your ideal dream clients. And if you want more, I will be back same time, same place next week with an amazing interview with an epic guest. So trust me, you don't want to miss that episode. But that is all from me for today. I hope you have enjoyed this while you've been drinking your morning cup of coffee. And I will see you all next week. Bye.